Hi everybody, it's Wanda Baader here from Strategize Your Success, and we are so happy to have you join us for this show. Welcome everyone. I'm going to go ahead and turn over the introductions of our guest expert and guest host to my co-host, Cynthia Bazin from SmartChick.
Hi everyone, Cynthia Bazin from SmartChick. Welcome to Hot Tips for Biz. We are so excited for you to join us live or catching the replay. We've got an awesome show today. We have two people joining us today. We've got Lyndon Kidd of lindonkid.com, and I'm thrilled to have for our guest expert today, Liz Stincelli of stincelliadvisors.com. Liz, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Cynthia.
I'm
really
so happy
to be here.
Oh, we're so happy to have you here, Liz. You know, this is a quick show, obviously 30 minutes, so we're going to get right to it. But I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about yourself and why you started your business and what you do.
So I'm really passionate about getting people to participate in their own lives, and we spend the majority of our time at work. And we don't want to be robots or machines, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. So what I focus on is helping organizations change their attitudes towards employee engagement, change their communication dynamics, help them with collaboration and problem solving to really get their employees involved.
That's awesome. You know what? This is going to be so welcomed by so many today that are watching live or catching the replay. Again, Hot Tips for Biz, everyone, with Liz Stincelli, our expert. So, Liz, I've got a first question for you. What 5 behaviors can leaders focus on every day to make their leadership more effective?
Okay, so I have 5 just really key behaviors. Acknowledge, communicate, engage, set an example, and give them something to believe in. And I don't know if you've ever read Jeff Olson's book, The Slight Edge. It's fantastic, and he talks about the simple disciplines that they're really easy to do, but they're just as easy not to do. And they don't in the beginning, you know, day 1 it doesn't seem to make a difference, day 2 you may not notice a difference, but over time they make all of the difference in the world. And that's how it is with these 5 behaviors. It's very simple to acknowledge, yet it's very simple not to acknowledge. But over time you really see that it makes all of the difference.
You know, how excited are you to have Liz on today, Wanda? I think this is going to be an important topic for everyone to hear.
Absolutely, and you know, we have a lot of entrepreneurs joining us, and even though they may not have employees themselves, I'm sure they probably have somebody virtually helping them. So you still have to be a leader in your business. So this is going to be really good information for anybody listening.
Awesome. And Lyndon, why don't you tell the audience, you know, what you do briefly, and, you know, how excited are you to have Liz on today to talk about this subject?
Well, I'm thrilled to be here listening to Liz, and part of what I do on a daily basis is I too work with companies and help with engagement, and I also work with individuals in regard to their career strategies, helping them identify ways in which they can find that work works better in their lives. But I'm really curious, Cynthia, Liz mentioned acknowledgement, and I'm curious why acknowledgement is important on a daily basis.
Well, Lyndon, that's a great question. Your employees need to know you care, and even if you don't have employees, you can use these in every aspect of your life, in your family, in your community. You know, people want to know that you recognize and appreciate the value that they have to contribute. So, coming back to, you know, Jeff Olson's idea, if Cynthia is one of my employees, it's very easy for me to come in the morning and just walk right past her. But it's just as easy for me to stop and say, you know, Cynthia, thank you so much for that annual sales report you put together. I know it was a lot of work, and I really appreciate it. Now, the first time you acknowledge Cynthia, you might not notice a difference. But believe me, it makes all the difference in the world to Cynthia. And over time, that acknowledgement is going to have a huge impact on your organization. And I want to quickly point out, you know, if you happen to have a larger organization, you might not be able to acknowledge employees, but you can really encourage your team leaders and your supervisors to acknowledge employees working under them. but you need to make sure that you're filling the bucket for your team leaders and your managers, so you acknowledge them, and then they have something that they can give to their employees.
Great point.
Yes, great point. And you know what? I just want to reach out to the audience. You know what? This seems like a simple concept, right? Acknowledgement. But you know what? Sometimes we get lax in our behaviors, right? Sometimes we forget the simple stuff, which means so much. How many of you are working for a large organization, or, you know, you might have some virtual employees like Wanda and I talk about, is that, you know, you got to take time, invest in your team members, because I've worked for great organizations and bad organizations, and you don't want your team members to feel like a number, right, Wanda?
Absolutely. We're all
Right,
little,
right.
we all have our inner child. We want to be loved and appreciated, right?
I know. It's the little things that mean so much.
So true.
So, you know, we can certainly, you know, we can go deeper into some of these things later on. Wanda, do you want to go on to the next point, and we'll move on with the next point?
Sure. It's like, I know that you believe that communication is a powerful tool in leadership. Can you expand on that and exactly what you mean? You know we need to appreciate people and verbally tell them, but what other things are you maybe hedging towards when you say that?
Well, this point kind of makes me laugh a little bit. You know, we've all heard it's on a need-to-know basis, and you don't need to know. And I'm amazed at how many leaders kind of have that mindset. But, you know, every employee is like a cog in the machine. And how can a cog work effectively if it doesn't even know what machine it's running? You know, your employees need to understand that big picture. And this is why I find it so humorous. Leaders act like all of this information is top secret. Well, you're not the NSA, you're not the CIA. You really don't have any top secret information. You know, sometimes leaders say, you know, the employees don't need this information. They wouldn't understand it anyway. If they don't understand it, then you're not doing your job at really educating them and helping them see the big picture. It's something that you've failed to do, not that they've failed to do. Leaders also often, pardon me, tell me, you know, they don't really trust that their employees won't share information with their competitors. Well, you build loyalty by making them feel like they're part of something, by sharing information and show them how the role they play fits into that, and giving them really a vested interest in the organization. So it's my belief, if you don't feel like you can trust your employees or that you can really count on their loyalty, it says more about you as a leader than it does about them as employees.
Mm-hmm. You know, I agree with that, and something you touched on is that you want your team members to feel like they're invested in the company, that it's their company. And so if you don't share the important information, you know, it's more like just a job versus a career. Lyndon, what are your thoughts on this?
I think communication is so important, because if we're going to have employees who feel like they've got a sense of meaning about the work that they do, it's in communicating what's happening in terms of the vision and the mission for the company, in which the employees have a chance to hook up, which is exactly what Liz is talking about, which is, you know, communication is key. Mm-hmm. I'm curious about engagement, however. I know in the past, we used to talk from an HR perspective about employee satisfaction, and it seems like engagement has replaced the concept of employee satisfaction as like the latest buzzword. Liz, what do you think? Is engagement different than satisfaction, and what is engagement? What does it mean?
I think, Lyndon, that employee engagement plays into employee satisfaction, and I think this is becoming more and more important as we've got this younger generation, you know, moving into the workforce. You know, nobody wants to be treated like a robot or a machine. They don't want to sit at their desk and just mindlessly, you know, tap away or whatever it is they're doing. They don't want to be treated as just mindless machines. And the younger generation, even more so than those of us that are getting older. You know, everyone wants to know they're making a valuable contribution. And we spend most of our lives at work. We need to feel like we have some level of control over our own tasks instead of someone dictating down to us this is what to do and this is how to do it and this is when to do it. So we really need to, involve our employees in problem solving. We need to offer them challenges so that they always feel like they're growing. When we engage our employees, it really shows them that we are confident in their abilities and we're interested in their input. And when they're really engaged, it kind of pools all of our expertise together and we all benefit.
Good point. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about what you're saying, Liz, and I look forward to the after discussion, because I think what we could do is we could probably give some examples, you know what I mean, of some great, leadership that we've seen before, and maybe some poor, examples, because we're going to have some time to do some roundtable discussion and stuff like that. But you know what, the engagement part, and you're just so right, is that it's so important that there's so many different businesses out there that, if you're not doing it and you don't make them feel wanted, people are going to look elsewhere. But I have found that, when your team members, I call them team members versus employees, when your team members feel wanted and engaged, they're typically pretty loyal. And you know what? They want to enjoy their day. They want to do good things. They just want to feel like there is some sort of mission for them and have some sort of passion for what they do. So, and Wanda, any additional thoughts on this?
Absolutely. It's like when you're talking, Liz, about the whole younger generation, what I see is that because I have an 18-year-old, and and obviously he's coming into the workforce, but I see his generation, they want to be, they're really into the whole team aspect and making something happen as a team. So they've got that cooperative thing going. But they also are wanting to have quality of life. So they don't want to be miserable at a job, like what you were saying before. So I think that if you let people take ownership in a project, for instance, it makes them get that, especially the younger kids.
I absolutely agree with you, Wanda. Absolutely.
So, Liz, before we go on to the next point, and everybody, we're here with Hot Tips for Biz, and we've got expert Liz Stinselli of StinselliAdvisors.com. As a guest host today, we have Lyndon Kidd from LyndonKidd.com, and my awesome co-host, Wanda Baader from StrategizeYourSuccess.com. Liz, what made you go into this? I mean, you've obviously seen the good, the bad, the ugly. Is that why you're so passionate about this?
I am, and you know what? One thing that really has made me think about, especially engagement and getting leaders to see this. Have you ever? I'm sure we've all done this. Sometimes you drive home from the office and you get home and you think, "How did I get here? Did I stop at that stop sign? I don't remember whether I stopped or not." Or there's been times I've been heading off to Costco, but it's kind of in the same direction of the office, and the next thing I know, I'm pulling into the office, and wait, this is not where I'm going, because we go on autopilot. Mm-hmm. So what might we be missing along that road when we're on autopilot? So when a task becomes so routine for employees, they go on autopilot the same way we do when we're driving. Well, when they're on autopilot, what might they miss? What opportunities may we miss to improve and grow as an organization because our employees are on autopilot the entire day? Mm-hmm. And as I looked at this and thought about it, it's like, how do we get leaders to really understand? Employees they all have different skills, different expertise to offer. Let's bring them all together and let's have everyone engaged and working together. And that's kind of why I decided that I wanted to go into this field and really be able to focus on making our work lives better, because I spent 20 some odd years, we won't say exactly how many some odd years, in the corporate environment at all different levels, and I know what it feels like to be on the other end. But sometimes once we work our way through the ranks, we forget what it was like to be on that lower end of the scale.
We're going to be getting on to our next points, but for those in the audience, Liz, that are thinking, you know what, I haven't engaged, I haven't done these things in so long, and you know what, my employers are going to think like, what the heck is going on? Why all of a sudden are they doing this? You know, number one, you know, it could be a process, right? You don't have to change it overnight, you know what I mean? But you just have to start, right?
That's absolutely right. You know, and you can start by some of these other things, walking around and just talking to your employees. Some people say, oh my goodness, what have I done wrong? My boss is actually coming and saying, you know, something as simple as, good morning, it's great to see you this morning, Wanda. We're glad to have you here. Something as simple as that starts getting employees kind of engaged in being where they're at and wanting to give 100% to their jobs.
Okay, awesome, awesome. Well, as you know, I'm all about focus, right? So we need to get back focused on the points. But let's go over what you've talked about so far. You talked about why acknowledgement is important. So for people writing these down, and then what impact does communication have on leadership? And is engagement just the latest buzzword, or does it really have an impact? And I think we all agree that it really does. So let's see, where are we at? I think, Wanda, do you have another question or point for Liz?
Yes, it's Liz. How does the example that you set impact the ability to be a good leader?
Well, leadership comes down to your ability to influence others. You can't influence others if they don't respect you, if they don't trust you, and your behavior goes a long way to determining that. Your behavior is going to either inspire your employees or it's going to intimidate and frustrate your employees. You know, and the fact of the matter is, your employees are then going to treat your customers the way you treat them. So that example you're setting up front is going to trickle all the way down through your employees, your customers, your suppliers, anyone that your employees interact with. You know.
So I was
awesome.
going to. I'm sorry. I was going to say, so for example, if the leader is someone who comes to work late all the time, and they think it's okay because they're the leader, but that's going to trickle down to the people who are actually employed, and allowing them to, you know, say, oh, it's okay for them, it must be okay for me, right? Is that the type of thing that you're talking about?
Absolutely. You can't say do as I say, not as I do. The same thing we say in parenting. You need to be setting that example. You want everyone there on time, you better be there on time and show them that that's important.
Linda, what other kind of examples? Do you have anything that's of top of mind that's setting the example for your team?
Going back to communication, yeah, for me, that's exactly where the heart of it lies. If we've got managers that are good communicators, if we've got managers that are good at sharing information and distributing information to the individuals have a better ability to find meaning in the work that they're doing. And that's at the heart of effective engagement. I do have an observation, though. You know, Liz was talking about autonomy. And in the workforce, one of the key attributes of effective engagement is this sense that individuals have not only a sense of meaning in what they do, but that they have autonomy in their choices. So autonomy over task, autonomy over team, autonomy over time, and autonomy over the way that the work is accomplished. One of my favorite authors is Dan Pink. In a book called Drive, he pulled together some of the best literature, scholarly literature, on engagement, and that was one of the hallmark aspects of effective engagement, was talking about autonomy, going deeper, leading into that kind of sense of meaningful purpose, which keeps people, as a result of all this dynamic communication, alive and awake and actively participating in our companies and knowing that they add value to the bottom line, which at the end of the day is what's important to the company and to the employee.
What do you think, Liz, about what Lyndon have to say?
That is fantastic. That is exactly what I'm talking about. And, you know, your behavior as a leader is, you know, it's going to set the tone for your entire culture in your organization. And so it can be very inspirational and very motivating, or it can be toxic. and it all starts with you.
Hmm. You know, Liz, and I'm just thinking of, you know, setting the example. I've worked with so many different types of leaders, and the one that just stands out is just, you know what, how prepared are you as a leader? You know, are you a hot mess as far as how you run meetings and how you engage with people, or are you organized? And are you speaking of a quality manner versus quantity? So again, if you're barking orders to get things done from your employees and team members, but you don't know how to get stuff done on your end. I mean, obviously, again, you set the tone as the leader and it trickles down. So just setting the example is just so important. So I love that point. You know, one of the final points, you know, that I had with you, Liz, that I wanted to ask you about is about, and we've touched on it a little bit, but why does a leader need to give followers something to believe in? Isn't a paycheck just enough for some people?
Well, the reason we all work, we all know, bottom line is we need to earn money, so we need a paycheck. But we spend so much time at work, that becomes so hollow when it's just a paycheck. Again, I come back to the robot. I can come in and act like a robot or a machine. I can go on autopilot and still collect my paycheck. Am I accomplishing my task? Maybe. Am I really contributing to something? Maybe not necessarily. You know, everybody wants to feel like they're part of something greater than themselves. You know, it feels good when we can go to bed knowing that we made a difference. And so since we spend so much time at work, we really need to feel like we're invested and we're making a positive impact. You know, John F. Kennedy said, efforts and courage are not enough without purpose and direction. And I feel like our employees are just hungering to really be part of something meaningful. And, you know, some of us find it in doing charity work. Some of us find us doing this or that or with our children. Well, 8 hours a day, at least, you know, 5 days a week, they're in your place of work. There's no reason we can't give them kind of that sense of really being part of something while they're with us.
I'll speak my mind in a moment. I want to pass it over to Wanda. Is that, what are your thoughts on what Liz has to say? And I mean, you weren't an entrepreneur all your life, right, Wanda? You've worked for people.
I've worked for 2 Fortune 500 companies.
I mean, maybe you can share something. I mean, have you ever felt, you know what I mean, just disengaged from a company that, like, you hadn't felt like you had no purpose? Or do you have any examples of that or anything you want to share?
Well, one thing I was always successful at as a manager was creating good teams. And I've always embraced the fact of, you know, being able to give people autonomy and learning their skill set too, because obviously if you give somebody something, you don't want to give them something that they're not either ready to handle or don't have the skill set to handle. So, you know, there's a certain amount of training that as managers we are responsible for, managers of our business or someone else's business. But you know, if you give people the skills to succeed, that's one thing. And then you give them the ability to say, this is going to be your part of the project, your baby, to go run with it. It also gives them pride in being able to say, you know, I did this. And it gives them, you know, a skill set to keep in their toolkit for the future.
Linda, do you have anything to add to what Wanda's saying from your perspective?
You know, I'm thinking about the headline today where in the, I believe it was the New York Times, there was a big article about allegations of creating a bad corporate culture or a bad corporate culture inside Amazon. And Jeff Bezos, as the leader, has taken the initiative to say, I want you all to send me an email of any examples of the kind of issues that you're seeing that are affecting our corporate culture. And that's a pretty brave thing for a CEO to do. But I also think that in ambitious companies, that are really trying to make a difference in terms of their bottom line and adding service and growing quickly, it's real easy for there to be such a gap between top leadership's intention for the company and how it actually ends up being happening, if you will, at the employee level, the line level. And so I think part of the challenge is being sure that, going back to one of our themes, which is good communication, and to Wanda's discussion about creating good teams, realizing that we're human, so we're in a complex human environment. We're going to have, not everybody with the same skill set as others, but this whole discussion about engagement and having people feel like what they do is valued is really coming full circle if you just look at the example of Amazon today in the news.
I'd love to add to that from just a little bit of a different twist. Being in the corporate world, running investigations, internal investigations, when bad stuff was happening there, one of my roles was to talk with team members and find out what's going on. And what a lot of team members told me, and what I learned through that, is that if you're not out there engaging with them and there's some bad behavior going on in those organizations, they're not voluntarily going to say something. And a lot of times team members know what's going on the line level, and they don't say anything. And you know the reason why? They tell me, because no one asked me. No one was engaging with me. So it's so important, not just for the positive stuff of what's going on and getting people engaged and feeling like they're part of the company and moving forward with it. There's a lot of stuff going on in companies, whether it's sexual harassment or theft or just funky stuff going on or bad communication stuff down at the line level, and they're just not going to volunteer it because, listen, you know what? Leadership don't care about me. Why should I be, trying to reach up to them? So I just wanted to add that communication to really know what's going on in your business, because a lot of times in the upper office, you really don't know what's going on in your business unless you really get out there and start talking to team members. Do you agree with that, Liz?
Oh, absolutely, Cynthia. I mean, people out there on the floor, they're the ones that really know what's happening inside and outside of your business. They know, what the morale is like. They really know so much more than you know. And when you sit in your ivory tower and think you know it all, you miss out on so much of the information that you really need to be successful.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I think the key is just, like we always say, Wanda, I always steal Nike's term, just do it. You just have to do it. And you know what? You're going to see things turn around. So, awesome stuff, Liz. If you wouldn't mind just listing off those 5 behaviors again, just so in case someone missed them, just, list them off again, and we'll be closing out the show. The 30 minutes went by so fast, but such valuable information.
It did. So acknowledge, communicate, engage, set an example, and give them something to believe in. And again, these are the small behaviors that over time make all the difference.
So important. Liz, I know you have a passion of turning companies around in this area and helping them. You know what I mean? Just helping them. Not, things might be bad. You want it to get better for them and everybody around them. How can people learn more about you and the services you provide?
They can go to stinseliadvisors.com, or you can find me on Twitter at InfiniteSTIN. And my email is stinseliadvisors@gmail.com. I'd be happy to hear from anyone out there who has some input that they'd like to share.
You were fantastic, Liz. I know that, some of this stuff is just reminders to us, but it's important reminders for all of us. Lyndon, I want to say thank you for being an awesome guest host today. Where can people find you?
At lindonkid.com or on Twitter at captivatingwork.
Perfect. And everyone, thank you so much for joining us. From my perspective, I'm going to turn it over to my co-host, but you can find more about me at smartchick.me. Wanda, how can people find you? And let's close it out for the day.
Well, I'm Wanda Baader from Strategize Your Success, and you can find me at strategizeyoursuccess.com. and I'm on all the social media platforms. So if you just look for my name or for Strategize, you'll be able to find me. I want to say thank you so much, Liz, for being a great expert today on today's show. Lyndon, thank you for taking time also to be with us today. You were fantastic. And, of course, my lovely co-host, Cynthia, thank you for another great show. And if you are interested in continuing on learning and how to grow your business, how to get better at being a boss, all sorts of things that we talk about here on the show, join us on Google Hangouts on air every Monday at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Goodbye. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you, Lyndon. Thank you, Wanda.